Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Tom Pastor, and this is our Coffee Talk on Recovery. With me are Jordan Rice and Alex Stalberger. And we will be talking about just some different methods for recovering from day-to-day life. So I'll let them introduce themselves first, and then we'll kick this off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan, and I am a nutrition and personal trainer and coach. I run my own business called Move to Perform. It's strictly online, and we're working toward a physical location to create a healthy lifestyle and to help everyone perform at their best in whatever they're trying to do in life.
Awesome. I'm Alex Stalberger. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. I work specifically with people through food to address stress resilience and burnout resistance because we practice with food every day. So we get the opportunity to make some really powerful choices that influence somebody's well-being, that courses through their career choices, their family life, and ultimately their personal wellness goals. So I run my business also online, but I do, coach people in the physical. So I like to meet face-to-face because that face-to-face is a great element that I really enjoy. So I'm excited to talk about this recovery because it's amazing that we have to recover from everyday life.
Yes.
Exactly. And again, I am Tom Pastor. I am a doctor of chiropractic. I really focus in my practice on helping people get to the bottom of complex health conditions that have been with them for a long time so that they can take action that works for them and feel better. So we're going to start our recovery talk today by talking about a little bit of terminology, a little bit of, actually, it's going to be neuroscience. So buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be fun. So the most basic thing to understand with recovery is that when we're talking about like we're on a roller coaster. I'm really glad I made that pun and that the two of you just ran with that.
Yes, yes, neuroscience, bring it on.
It's neuroscience.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about recovery, really what we're talking about is parasympathetic states. So in order to talk about that, we need to talk about sympathetic versus parasympathetic. So sympathetic is your body systems that are usually known for fight or flight. So this is moving blood to your limbs, to your arms and your legs so that you can run or you can fight or you can do something to take action. And this can be in response to anything. And really anything that requires your action, be it a stressor or a good thing, being a bad thing or a good thing, can prompt a sympathetic response. So it is the thing that allows us to get up in the morning. It's the thing that allows us to get moving. It's the thing that allows us to protect somebody if something should happen, or to take action to protect ourselves, or even to be aggressive for a good thing. I mean, talking about more common things that you see in our current culture, we're talking about it's the thing that allows you to be aggressive in a boardroom. It's the thing that allows you to get up and make a work presentation. I mean, these sympathetic states are necessary and they're good, but they are not good for recovery. So when we're talking about recovery, what we're talking about is going into parasympathetic states, which is the opposite of the fight or flight. It is the rest, digest, and reproduce, which means that when you are in a parasympathetic state, your body is paying more attention to growth and to repair and to digestion. Because when you're in a sympathetic state, you will actually funnel blood away from your guts and away from what you need to maintain yourself in order to deal with the situation that is happening to you right now. And when you're shifting into the parasympathetic, it goes the opposite direction. More blood goes to your guts. It allows you to digest your food. It allows you to breathe a little easier. And it allows you to start doing some of the repair things that you need to do day in and day out. And the ultimate form of parasympathetic action is sleep. And sleep is actually the only time of day. It's the only time during your entire life that you actually build. While you're awake during the day, all you do is use your resources, is use your nutrition, is use the things that you stockpiled, and that results in damage over time. That's why we need to sleep. Sleep is the only time that you actually repair muscles, that you repair cells, that you repair your DNA. So it's a necessary phase for everybody to go through. And that is something that a lot of people know, but it's a complex topic, and it's not one that we're actually going to focus a lot on here. So I'm actually going to pass this to Jordan now. She's going to talk about some of the things that she gives people to help them recover from the workouts and the routines that she gives, and what she includes in her programming to help with that.
Yeah. I think a big part of what I do, there are 3 different forms of recovery. And when somebody brings up rest, I have to clarify and kind of identify, well, what type of rest are we talking about? What type of recovery between an exercise, between sets, between workouts? Because they're all really important, and more likely than not, somebody is missing in or lacking in one of those 3 areas, maybe more. And they're all important for growth, for development, for performance, for success, for results, and ultimately for a healthy lifestyle. And I have to work through and kind of coach people on all 3 of those facets in order to bring them to their end result. If you think you go through a workout and you fly through reps, you just kind of move in and out of a squat, by the end, your legs are going to hurt so bad. You're going to be so tired. You're not going to be able to finish your desired amount. You're just going to kind of crash right down to the ground and have to wait there until you're forced to rest. You move right from one exercise to the next. You finish a set and you move right to another exercise. And you rush through these workouts, not really giving yourself the time to recover. By the end of your workout, you're going to feel completely cashed, and you're going to crawl out of the gym. Or the last part of waiting between workouts and recovering from workout to workout, if you go from a really hard workout one day, jump right into the next workout, either that day, later that day, you're eventually going to be rolled right out of the gym. So we have to roll into the recovery piece in order to get the results. But the biggest question I get is, how do I recover without having to spend hours upon hours on days in the gym? And there are quite a few different ways that I talk about it. It kind of depends on the individual and how much time they're willing to give. Yes, the standard of recovery is 30 seconds to 2 minutes between sets. But between reps, it's give yourself the time to reset. Don't stand up from a squat and just drop right back down. Don't push up from a push-up and flop right back down to the ground. I think in a workout, the biggest recovery piece I use is the huff and puff test. If you are huffing and puffing by the time you go to the next exercise, to the point where you can't even catch your breath yet, you're moving too fast, and you have to let yourself breathe and catch up. And that may take 15 seconds. That may take 30 seconds. And if you're new to working out, if you're new to exercise, it may take a full 2 minutes. But knowing that and kind of allowing yourself to breathe and have that time. But the biggest one that I run into is people moving from workout to workout. We have this goal of working out 3 to 5 days a week because we're told in order to lose weight, to get stronger, to be healthier, we need to work out 3 to 5 days a week. And that's not wrong. But how do I do that? How do I fit 3 to 5 workouts in a week if I need to let 1 or 2 days of workouts, 1 or 2 days of rest or recovery happen in between those workouts? And I think of a lot of us are taught the no pain, no gain mentality, where we have to kind of feel the pain and feel the burn, the stress of what we did in order to know that something's happening. But if you think about it, you do a really heavy leg day, and you wake up the next morning and standing up to go to the toilet is hard. And you want to go, you get up, you go, you're ready to go to another leg day in the gym. That leg day is going to be really hard. Because yes, you're going to have pain, but really you're not going to have any gain because those muscle cells don't have anything left. I was trying to think of the best analogy for this for people to better understand. And what I came up with is, you think of road construction. We really hate it. They rip up the roads and they're trying to repair, but a big rainstorm comes in and they can't continue to repair the road until the rainstorm stops. until the kind of conditions settle. They can't lay pavement, or else they're going to risk further damage later on. Same goes for your muscles. If you beat yourself down to the point that those muscle cells have nothing left in them, and you try to, again, pour more on the next day, you're risking injury later. You're risking more damage and more harm and more beatdown when there really is no benefit. A road construction sites, if they try to fix it really quickly in the middle of this thunderstorm, they're only going to have to come back and fix it. And you're going to have to do the same. I think of how to go about planning your recovery workouts, and I think of 3 different ways to do it. One is you go for split workouts, which means if you do an upper body day, follow it with a lower body day, and then an upper body day, and then a lower body day, which is giving you the ability to let those muscle groups rest. And you're still pumping blood to those muscles to allow nutrients to return, to allow yourself to recover, but you're not working them in a way that's strenuous or that's creating more harm than it is benefit. The other is active recovery workouts, which kind of a long-winded answer to get here, but active recovery workouts are ways to work the muscles without further strain. And those are misunderstood, I think. I think that a lot of us think that it has to be, if you're lifting weights, it has to be a hard cardio workout. If you're a heavy endurance person, then you need to lift some weights or do some type of strength training activity. But really the idea is to do something light and different and not strenuous on your muscles. And running is strenuous, lifting is strenuous, no matter what your preferred modality of training is. And with active recovery workouts, a lot of what you want to do is you want to take out the eccentric form of a lift. So if you're not understanding of the term eccentric, it is the lengthening portion of it. So in eccentric, okay, when you think of a push-up, that is when you're lowering yourself down to the ground. Now you can't take that out of a push-up. You can't just come to the top and say, well, Jordan said take out the eccentric, so I'm just going to flop back down. Okay, you just have to gently come down. You may not be able to pump out all the reps. A squat, underloading that eccentric portion where you're not having any weight when you come to the top. A lot of people will talk about deadlifts. You can concentrically pull. You can pull the bar up to the top and then drop it. Please don't ever do that in my gym.
It's a little loud.
Please
and a little
don't.
damaging.
Yeah, it's gently lower it. Please gently lower it. But I think the best way to go about recovering for workouts is combining those two and doing an upper lower split where you do one upper day, one lower day, and then an active recovery day. Something that's really light, something that may be as simple as going for a walk, maybe as simple as going for a bike ride, doing body weight exercises, something that you can do from your desk at work, just getting up and pumping some blood to your muscles. And then following that up with another upper lower day, maybe with another active recovery day in there. But both are beneficial to you, and both are going to prevent you from a lot of harm and from having to kind of restart and go back to what you were hoping to accomplish later on.
And this is what kind of prompted this discussion to begin with, was this idea that people generally resist recovery days, they want to reach their goal. They want to charge forward. They want to add things. In your case, they want to do the heavy workouts because that's what makes them feel good. That's what gives them the endorphin rush.
Yeah.
You and I, having both worked with powerlifters a lot too, there's a lot of drive to do the heavy lift, to do the thing that's flashy, to do the thing that gives you that rush, and to neglect stretching, to neglect an active recovery day that allows you to just go for a walk, do some yoga, something of that nature. And that was really what prompted this discussion, was that eye roll that we get every time we discuss with somebody, work on some recovery. I mean, that's a regular phrase that some of the powerlifters I know go through, is there's no such thing as overtraining, there's only under recovery.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of this conversation is coming from, is sleeping and eating and resting and having recovery workouts, all for the sake of promoting that recovery from those heavy workouts.
And I'm 100% guilty of it. I mean, I look at when I was a collegiate athlete, if we had an off day, it wasn't an off day. It was a get better. You go work out, you go hit, you do something, because off days weren't what I was told were going to bring results. Hard work and putting the hours in and all of the training is what was going to get me the result that I wanted. And for me now, being a power lifter, I know that I squatted and deadlifted yesterday. And if I attempted to squat and deadlift again today with the same type of weight, I would have to be picked up from this bar behind me. I don't know if I would get back up. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you don't really realize has as much of an impact on your training and how you feel just day to day until you actually start to apply some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I would have ever told my 22-year-old self that on Wednesdays I'm gonna make my recovery workout a bike ride, a light 40-minute bike ride, I would have laughed, because, well, I don't really break a sweat. I'm not really fatigued or tired when I do it. So what is that, I would have said, what is that going to do for me? How is that?
Forbid you would enjoy it,
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that's missing for a lot of people, is you think that we think the joy of working out comes from the beating ourselves down. Mm. But it's really, I mean, heck, I'm a lot happier. I'm a lot more joyful when my body feels good. Just ask wonderful chiropractor extraordinaire here. When I am not physically feeling good, I'm not a happy human. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, and I am always the first to admit, I need to spend more time working on my shoulders. I need to spend more time loosening up my hips. But it's a work in progress to remind myself and to not do the classic eye roll of this. You need to schedule just as much time for this as you do for your workouts. Or else
you can also apply that to things outside of the gym. I mean, you can apply that to everyday life with careers. I mean, we have this idea that that there needs to be this grind, that if you're not working, you're not doing something. If you're not contributing to your career, if you're not working on your presentations, if you're not doing marketing, then you're not developing yourself. And in the gym is a perfect example of just something people have specific goals of trying to gain weight. I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo. I'm having a terrible time. Oh, well, it went away. So we're just going to keep rolling then.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
All right.
No, so back to what you're saying, it's very countercultural to value rest or to devalue a slowdown. And that's something that absolutely we're trying to figure out. Like, everybody has a different value system. And until you figure out how to plug rest into that value system, it's not going to mean much to you. Like your bike ride. To enjoy a bike ride, you have to be ready to mentally accept the fact that you might enjoy a nice light bike ride. And that takes a lot of layers of preparation for somebody to say, oh, instead of pumping hard at the gym, I'm going to laugh and enjoy some wind in my hair with a person that I value. And that's going to give me the same, like not the exact same, but it's going to funnel me toward my ultimate goal, right? It's going to funnel me toward the ultimate goal. Maybe that's what we're missing, is so many of us are looking at what is it going to take for me to achieve my goal, and like looking to check off a box in that way, instead of saying, what is the ultimate goal beyond that number that we're reaching for, and how does that plug in?
Yeah, I think, and it's a different process to figure out how it is enjoyable. And it's fun to, go through this for myself as well as for clients.
Yeah.
But it's, workouts are a form of meditation for a lot of people. And for me, being able to lift and think about what I'm doing has always been a form of meditation. It's, from when I started lifting as a teenager to now, it's always been the time where I have that time to myself. Well, when you're sitting on a bike, you are literally with yourself sometimes. When you're going for a walk, I'm actually I don't have weights to think about. I have to think about me, and maybe if I'm on a bike, maybe the pain in my rear from the seat there. But I still don't have that saddle, whatever they call it. When you're beating yourself down in a normal workout, you are kind of pushing away that being with yourself, and actually maybe allowing yourself to mentally recover, because you're thinking about the other things. You're talking to your body to recover from the exercise you just did, or your heavy breathing. You're trying to tell yourself to let your heart rate come down, slow your breathing down. Where when you're doing some of these lighter recovery workouts, you're in an active recovery workout, you're not feeling the burn in your muscles. You're not feeling the elevated heart rate or the rapid breathing. So you don't have to tell yourself to think about that. And now you get to think about other things, and you really get to dive into maybe some other thoughts that you have, and really make it a form of meditation. Now I do a lot of, I call it's like mental journaling, where you sit and you kind of go through, you do a little check of, how am I really feeling physically? How am I feeling mentally? Maybe I listen to a book, maybe I listen to a podcast, but it gives my mind kind of a different opportunity to meditate and mentally recover than it does in a typical workout.
Would you say that the development of that has been a practice, like you had to practice to get to that space?
Yes, I think because in the beginning I was very much in the mindset of like, this is not what I do for a workout. This is not the same thing. I'm not feeling the same benefit. And I really had to kind of, use some different modalities to get myself into actually doing these active recovery workouts, of like, this is a great opportunity to listen to this podcast you've wanted to listen to, or listen to this book, or watch this video, where it was kind of like you start a podcast or a video and it's 20-ish minutes long. Well, then you're done. You're like, well, I'm already doing this, so I'm just going to keep going. And it's a practice, and it's something that I still have to remind myself. I wear a heart rate monitor, so I know that my heart rate isn't going above what I am told it's supposed to be at. And I routinely have to check to make sure that it's not going above 130, so that I'm not subconsciously pushing myself to a different level.
Which brings back to kind of that sympathetic, parasympathetic, all those things you were just describing, listening to an audiobook, the enjoyment of a process. I mean, that's one of those that is inherently recovery. That is pushing yourself to a parasympathetic state. And I think that's one of the things that's undervalued, is simply enjoying doing something, simply enjoying the value of spending time listening to a book, spending time with family, playing. There's a lot of recovery value in that, be it mentally or physically, that you don't get when you're hardcore grinding towards a goal in the gym or a goal at work or something like that. There's that inherently sympathetic, that's inherently aggressive, that's inherently driving. And in order to recover, allowing yourself the time to play, allowing yourself the time to relax and just do something that feels relaxing and simple.
Yeah. What comes up again and again is from what I'm hearing is just how do you get somebody to value that? How do you communicate the value of rest and recovery, so you can access parasympathetic, so you can allow your body to do the recovery in the building that you need to do.
Right.
And we work through that all the time. I mean, I work with go-getters. I mean, that's the only type of people I work with. And I'm sure you see a lot of the same people in your gym, Jordan. Like, they're go-getters. They're there for a purpose. They're there to like work hard and get a result, which I completely value. How could we not value that in a culture, throughout our whole school system, into career and adulthood? We're always told to strive for the next thing. What's the next thing you're striving for? Go, don't stop. If you stop, that's wasted time. So there's not really a structure that's taught, inherently within our culture that says like, hey, stopping and resting is like actually going to get you to where you actually want to be faster and more meaningfully. Like nobody's using those words. I mean, we could, so we have to like retrain that in adulthood.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what, I attempt to do with food is say, okay, like we all eat, but like chances are like your breakfast is in the car and you drank yours or inhaled it and then maybe inhaled the dinner and you didn't think about it because you were also like working on a million things at the same time. You're like, okay, like that's a choice. Those are choices we make all the time. We're choosing to say my achievements are more important than the time spent wondering whether if what I'm achieving is actually what I want.
Right.
And so we're achieving just lots and lots and lots. This quantity is better than the quality, or at least subconsciously, that's most of the people that I come into contact with.
And what you just said too, I mean, eating breakfast in the car, inhaling your lunch in, between meetings in the form of a shake, like you don't actually digest when you do that. If you're in that sympathetic state, you're not digesting your food. And if you never get to a point where you get to relax, then you're never going to digest that food. It's just going to pass through and you're going to get no nutritional value from it. And I see that a lot. I mean, I definitely experienced that. I was a grad student. Well, I was a college student at one point. I feel like a lot of people in the college situation, in the very go-getter mindset at that point, are in that same boat where I don't have time to stop and eat. I'm not going to leave myself the time to stop and eat. And that's actually a terribly dysfunctional statement saying I don't have the time to do something. I know that actually grinds gears with everybody in this chat here. So we're just going to move past that and go back to nutrition. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, you're not digesting because your body doesn't have the capacity to put the blood where it needs to go. And as we look around and we hear a lot more about autoimmune disorders and autoimmune functions, your body is trying to do it. The body's always working for your very best. And so that's one of my favorite things I love to teach people is like, ultimately, if you're dissatisfied with the way your body is functioning, like we need to repair your relationship with your body because your body is literally doing the very best it can do given the environment it's given. So given the food that it's given how we're eating our food, given the like places we choose to cook, prepare, and enjoy our food, whether it be with a functional relationship or a dysfunctional relationship, those things all spin around and they all impact the way that we can digest our nutrients and use it as building blocks for this life that we're building for ourselves and the career that we're building for ourselves. So even when I approach a client, we're not talking just about food you put in your mouth. I mean, so I use this concept that's called primary and secondary food. Secondary food is anything that goes in your mouth because it's always secondary. It's always dependent upon primarily how you're approaching that food, how you're approaching your life. So if you're in a career that puts you in stress all the time, you can eat like literally all the kale in the world and you're still going to probably fall ill and be sick because even though you're eating a balanced diet, it's not all about the food that you're putting in your mouth. It's about how you're approaching the choices that you're making. So if you're choosing to put good food in your body, that's awesome. But we also need to choose why we're putting that good food in our body and how we can best be served by the food we're putting in our body. So we talk a lot about relationships, just the people, and not the people that we feel like we have relationships with, but the people that we're literally coming into contact with all the time. And when we have somebody that's working in a toxic environment at work, unfortunately, that's majority of their day, whether or not they want to say that that's an important relationship in their life, it's an important relationship in their life, even if they're hating it most of the time. So, relationships, the career, whether they feel like that they're doing something meaningful, whether they feel connected with the community, that all impacts how we are responding to the food we're putting in our body and responding to the energy and how well we rest. If you don't feel like you're making a difference in your world, what's keeping you up at night?
Yeah.
The feeling like, why am I here? What am I doing? What does all this mean? So there's a lot that keeps us from really relaxing and settling into our full potential that doesn't go into our mouths. So we talk about that side by side. So I love that you described workouts as meditative. I've never experienced that personally. I like walks, maybe, you know, like walks and biking. I can like, that's a meditative experience. I haven't challenged myself to like weightlift to that meditative experience, but like my meditative experience happens in the kitchen when you're creating something. It's just really neat to see like that meditative, that rest, that reminder of checking in with yourself and saying, hey, you know, what do I need? That is so neat that everybody gets that from something, you know, and whether it be at the gym or whether it be in the kitchen preparing something, maybe you're meal prepping for the week, and you have the chance to ask yourself, you know, what is it that I need from a variety of aspects of my life? And listening to that, I just feel like that is, we just hit it on the head. Like that's the key. Wherever that happens, we need to make a practice of that happening, because that's that active recovery for life, you know?
Yeah.
Very interesting you say it that way, because I think that's the essence of meditation. I mean, when you read about meditation, you start putting these things into practice. Any element where you can be really present with what you're doing, not just following an instruction, not just going through motions, but being really present and engaged is meditative. It's presence. It's mindfulness. And I feel like that term gets kind of a woo-woo association with people who don't necessarily practice it, but it's what you were talking about with preparing food. Food is a part of your heart and soul. It's one of the things that you do when you talk about, and it's one of your most passionate subjects. So when you're preparing it, when you're getting to move around with it, when you're getting to experiment with it, I mean, that's something that I experience a lot, is when I'm getting to play with the food that I'm preparing, getting to make up a recipe, getting to just prepare what I have, because at this point I know enough about food that I can just make it up as I go. It can be a form of play where I'm present and engaged. And it sounds like that's what that is for you. Whereas for somebody who spends so much time in the gym, so much time taking care of your body, I mean, that's why I could see a really heavy workout, something where you're aiming for a perfect squat, where you're aiming to add and really challenge yourself. That puts you so thoroughly and mindfully in your body and in your situation. I think that's why it feels meditative.
And that's play too, right? You know what you're capable of. Just like a person that's new to the kitchen, they don't know what's possible when they look at a bunch of spices and a bunch of whole food. But with enough practice, you realize exactly where your edge is, where your boundary line is, and you start to push it, you know, and be inspired by others. And yeah, that's play too. But I am curious though, Jordan, so when you're working with people, like do they typically talk about like that enjoyment, that play aspect, that I don't know, am I using the right words? I just am curious on how aware people are when they're going to the gym and they have a specific like number they're wanting to hit and they want to push themselves to X number of level. Are they aware of like how creative they are with their bodies?
I think it's similar to cooking. You start out and you don't know what you're doing. You know, you're kind of, the only awareness is me telling you what to do. And you are just waiting for me to kind of tell you that next thing. But I look with some of the people that I've worked with for a long time, and they come in and they have their program and they just start and they know. And when I think what really kind of defines it is if they've kind of reached that piece is, you know, one of two ways. They know if they don't feel like doing an exercise, if they're like, I'm just not, you know, my body isn't ready for squats today. Is there something else I can do? That's, you know, that's a huge thing, to know that there's another thing that they're capable of doing that's going to give them maybe a comparable benefit, maybe the exact same benefit, because their body just isn't ready for that exercise. And that's probably the most advanced form of me seeing someone who's ready, who's playing with what they're able to do.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people is they go about it as when they have to miss a workout, I just feel off. I feel off. And I think it's good for people to miss workouts, because it kind of is a little unsettled check-in of where am I at with with how I go about my workouts. Do I, does it feel weird? Does my day feel off because I wasn't able to do something physically with my body? Or did everything kind of feel in routine? I would say it just like in the kitchen, it takes a while for people to get to that point, but people definitely start to find it as their playtime and their time to be with themselves and really be mindful of how their body is moving without even labeling it as mindfulness and without really labeling it as meditation, until you maybe say like, oh, wasn't it cool like how aware you were of your body? Oh, I didn't realize it.
Yeah. So they might not have the words, they might not have the language to express that necessarily.
Because I think, meditation has such people think it's sit in a chair, close your eyes and breathe, or lay down and, give yourself some self-love and some positive self-talk. And I am not one of those people. It's really hard for me to do that. But, when you find other ways to get into that space, well, I can be in the middle of a workout and tell myself how awesome I am for any given period of time. And why is that not the same? Well, it is.
Yeah.
And to me, it is. And I'm going to get more benefit out of that than out of lying down on a table and breathing and telling myself how awesome I am.
And well, gosh, I'm just going to wrap it back to Tom. When we're talking neurologically, when you're talking about gratitude for yourself and gratitude for your body, doesn't matter how you access that. And it's nice to give ourselves permission to access that in a variety of ways. To say it can show up when you're sitting down with your eyes closed and doing your ohms. Sure, it can happen there, or it can happen in between sets, or it can happen when you're food prepping, or it can happen right before you take a bite of, the food that you tried so hard to make right and you're pretty sure it's going to taste awful. But just like from a neurological standpoint, that intention of saying like, yeah, like I'm doing this for me and for the right reasons, that brings us into a different neurological state.
It does.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot of cool study being done in the last few years about that exact phenomenon. They're calling it flow state. So there are a bunch of books and a bunch of studies and a bunch of concepts and a lot of talks being done on flow state, which is exactly that concept. It's that same mindfulness where you're doing something, you're playing, and you're really in it. Like there is no distracting thought. There's no squirrel moment. There's no getting pulled off track because you're so involved in what you're doing. And that sounds very much like what we were all talking about with cooking, when you're getting to play and experiment, and exercising when you really hit something, when you really just pushed your limits and done something extraordinary. Then you get to celebrate yourself because you were in that flow, you were in that state. So they're calling it flow state. It's kind of like that advanced meditative where you're not sitting and doing ohms, but you are doing something that you're so thoroughly involved in. And again, there's an element of recovery in that. There's an element of relaxation in that. There's an element of just peace in that. That becomes very important.
Yeah. So it's kind of like resetting our expectation for what a successful routine is as a whole, and not feeling like those times of flow, which the way you described it, like makes it seem pretty active, but it doesn't have to be active. It's just something you're completely in, right? From what I understand.
Well, and there are ways to train yourself to it. There is an active component, but you're right. When you really train yourself to get in that state, it's tough to describe, because that's why you can't say it's not work, because flow is ultimately doing your work so well that it's play. So there is an actively engaged portion, but it's
I gotta read more on that. That's cool. I like that idea.
I'll have to get
approaching tasks a little differently.
Yeah.
Instead of approaching it almost, because we expect, at least in my conversations with my clients, like when you're doing work, you expect to feel a certain way, and when you expect to feel ultimately like very turned on, very, very sympathetic, very like, we almost want stress in our lives to remind us that what we're doing, we're working hard enough at it.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I feel like that's because at the very beginning of this conversation, you had said that it's remarkable that we have to recover from our everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is why we need to recover from our everyday life, because we have this very dysfunctional idea that work has to be stressful, and that making money and earning a living have to be stressful. And we put that label on work, that work is inherently something we wouldn't do if we weren't getting paid for it. And that our jobs are something that we do only because we're getting paid and we need to make a living, and that has to be hard and that has to be a struggle. So we're still, I think it's a cultural thing. We expect for work to be difficult. We expect for work to be stressful and hard. And I think we have this narrative happening right now where if we're not struggling, if we're not stressed, then we're not doing what we should be doing. And I think that's something that's really cool about the careers that all of us are in and the businesses that we're all trying to build as professionals. And something I've observed in developing with both of you and with a lot of other young entrepreneurs is that we're starting to redefine that narrative. We're starting to change it to, we can do something that we really love. Marketing doesn't have to be stressful. Marketing can be having good conversations with other professionals. And our jobs don't have to be stressful. They can be play. They can be having fun while making the living that we want to make. It doesn't have to be so stressful on ourselves. And I think that is ultimately going to be one of the elements of long-term recovery, I think, as a culture is coming to that idea that we don't have to tear ourselves down to make a living. Earning money doesn't have to be hard and stressful. We can earn a living doing something that helps people, doing something that we enjoy doing something that we can do with such excellence that it becomes play. And I feel like
you need somebody to demonstrate it, though. You know, right. It's like you're not sure you can get your best ideas when you're not working and you're walking instead, right? When you take a break and you have your best idea because you literally aren't engaging the same part of your brain. It's like we can hear that a million times, but until it happens to you, you're like, there's a part of me that doesn't believe that, you know?
Right. Well, but how many times have you had a groundbreaking idea in the shower because your mind was not actively engaged and you weren't focused, and then some connection was made and you went, holy crap?
I swear my best work is done in the shower. I know.
I should shower more often, man.
I mean, seriously, if I could take like 12 showers a day, I would have created so many more things in this world already. I mean, I really swear I'm going to come up with like a waterproof notebook so I can write down all my ideas in the shower.
I feel like, it's maybe if you fire already, like dry erase marker, but wet. I don't know. We could figure it out.
Yeah, we'll make this happen.
We can figure this out. Yeah. So I guess my next question, it's just in general is like, what's the general perception of rest and recovery, and where are we on, like, locally, where are we in adjusting the acceptance of rest and recovery as something that is like worth striving for? Or worthwhile?
I think there's a hunger for it. I mean, that's something that I've gained as I've been talking with a lot of people in the health and wellness spaces. People don't understand that that's what they need. They don't necessarily understand that the reason they're not getting more done is that they haven't taken the chance to recover so they can be more effective. But I think that once that there's a hunger for that rest, there's a craving for that key, that permission to rest, that permission to play. And I think that it really comes to exactly what you said, where you just need it demonstrated, because some part of us still doesn't believe that can be the way it is.
I really like that you used the word permission, because that word was swimming in my head before you just used it.
And that's actually, so that's something that comes up a lot when I'm working with my practice members is you have permission to rest. You have permission to feel these things. I mean, I think one of the things that gets associated with mindfulness and meditation is this power of positive thinking. And people make that feel really hokey. Like you always have to be positive. Like you always have to be looking on the bright side of things. And that's really not the root of it at all. Like you can have permission to be really pissed about something, and you can have permission to be angry, and you should feel through those things because that's part of the experience. But also that means that when you are in a positive place, it's that much more positive. It's that much more playful and not much more in flow and in awareness.
I use the word like you're intentionally choosing in my coaching. So to like, you want to be sure that you're experiencing all the emotions. And yes, positivity is really great, like what you said. But you want to make sure that you're exploring that space between a stimuli and a response, because like we have that space. And to recognize that it's there and say, I'm going to choose to be really angry about something, but that's my choice, and I'm choosing that. There's a lot of power in that, and a lot of power we don't get to feel all the time, So I like that you told me, you said that, and when that comes along with permission, like just giving yourself permission within that space between, somebody cutting you off on the highway. Okay, you have permission.
Yeah.
Experience that however you choose, but you have to choose. You have permission to experience recovery, and you have to choose how you're going to feel about that recovery. You're going to either choose to feel like this is a giant waste of your time, or you're going to choose to find the joy in the bike ride.
And it's all in the narrative. It's all in how you choose to talk about it. It really does come down to that power of choice. I mean, going back to the traffic scenario, you only get one side of that narrative. You don't know what that person was doing. I mean, their pregnant wife could have been in the back getting ready to deliver in labor. And that's why they cut you off and were trying to get somewhere in a quick, there could have been some really tragic thing happening and that person was not thinking about the fact that they were driving like a jackass on the road. They were thinking, I need to get where I need to be. It wasn't about you. And you can choose, and even if you do choose to get upset about it for a second, you can say, you know what, I don't know why. I don't necessarily know why they were doing that. I don't know what the other story was. And maybe get angry about it for a second and let it go. Or you can choose to hold on to that for the rest of your day and let that stress and that sympathetic state seep into the rest of your night when you should be relaxing and you should be enjoying your family or your time making your food or something like that.
Yeah. So your mind, the way that you're approaching it, the choices that you make, the permission you feel to make the choices you make actually impact your ability to rest and recover.
Entirely.
More than maybe the active or inactivity you do throughout your day.
Well, and there's a really solid method for kind of prompting that. So one of the things that I use primarily with my practice members is breathing. It's the primary thing that I use to evaluate how somebody is doing is their breathing pattern, their breathing ability. Because it's not something that people typically consider as such an indicator of how they're doing. I mean, breathing is one of the first things you ever do once you're born. It's one of the first and most basic programs that you run every day. And it's one of the most important things that you do, getting oxygen in and letting toxins out. And it's such a core pattern that it's actually tied into a whole lot of our functions beyond just getting oxygen in and letting toxins out. So your breathing rate can actually indicate where your mind's at. When you're stressed, you breathe very differently than when you're relaxed. And because of that association, you can actually drive yourself more one way than the other if you know how to do it. So one of the things that I give for the people that I work with who are dealing with anxiety or any kind of chronic stress, which I feel like is something that is so common today that we all had to work through working with clients and patients and practice members with that. And you'll notice that when people are stressed, when people get really sympathetic, their breathing gets really high, gets really up in their chest, and they actually don't hardly ever use their stomach to breathe. They're breathing very quickly, very up in their chest, indicating that they're stressed. And they're also breathing, there's a lot of inhale, there's a lot of intake of oxygen, which is actually really necessary when you're thinking about sympathetic versus parasympathetic. It's really necessary to get that oxygen in order to take action so that your muscles have the fuel they need to go, and your brain has the fuel that it needs to process information quickly. But so the other side of that breathing rhythm is that you can also, when you are rested, when you are parasympathetic, when you are healing, when you're efficient, you do have a different breathing pattern. You're usually more in your belly. That's a more efficient way to breathe. But you're also, the rhythm of inhale versus exhale is different. So one of the easy tools, one of the easy take homes for driving yourself more sympathetic or more parasympathetic is to control the rhythm of your breathing. So one thing you can do to just level yourself out is what they call combat breathing or box breathing. So it's a 4 count in, a 4 count hold, a 4 count out, and then a 4 count hold out. And what that does is help you kind of come to a steady midpoint where you can still be engaged, you can still be active. They actually call it combat breathing because it's how they teach people to handle stressful situations when they have to be in combat, when they have to be in something where they need to be alert. They shouldn't be relaxed. You should not be relaxed when there's a crazy explosion thing happening when you're in combat. But what you can also do is vary that rhythm depending on how you want to drive yourself. So if you are getting ready to lift 500 pounds on your back, then you want to be sympathetic. You want to be engaged and you want to be there. So you want a longer inhale. You want to inhale for a longer period of time and exhale quickly so that you can tell your body, I'm sympathetic. I need to be engaged. I need to be here. I need to be present. And I need to be doing this right now. Whereas if you realize that you're not in a sympathetic state, if you're at home laying in bed and your mind is racing, a really good way to tell yourself that you're safe and you're relaxed and you can be recovering, you can be parasympathetic, is to make a longer exhale. So maybe a slow in and then hold and then a long exhale, maybe twice as long exhale. And it doesn't need to be a 4 count because some people don't have the lung capacity to do that. They haven't trained themselves to breathe that way. So it could be a 2 count in and a 4 count out, or a 4 count in and an 8 count out. But the longer you can exhale, and a really, really fun way to engage that is to sing. Because singing, in order to keep up with the rhythm of singing of a song, you have to inhale quickly and then exhale slowly as you're singing the song, as you're speaking, or as you're engaging that way, which is a really fun thing for people who are getting anxious on their drive into work. It's something I've encountered a handful of times before, where somebody's primary stressor is their job. And I say, you know what, instead of letting yourself get wound up in the car on the way there, just sing. I mean, plenty of people do it anyway, and nobody's paying attention to what you're doing when you're behind the wheel unless you cut them off. So just sing. And in fact, if you sing louder and sing, do the whole throw your head back and sing like nobody can see you, because, they won't. It actually helps engage that parasympathetic. It helps you enjoy that experience a little more and helps you relax and take your mind off of that really stressed state. No, can't hear you.
Oh, I just love it so much. I'm totally stealing it. I use it with all my clients.
Yeah,
So
it's a great way. It's one of my favorites.
Don't need to sing in the car.
Yeah.
Boom.
Sing like a damn fool. Like, just completely too. Doesn't matter how bad it is, nobody's in the car with you.
I love it.
And your kids are going to judge you either way, so they can hear the bad singing.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. And a great way just to, because you can feel when you switch over from, when you intentionally switch and by using breathing, you can almost feel that sensation of switching over into parasympathetic, right. That like tingling in the back.
Right. Well, and the cool thing about breathing is that it's one of the few bridges between conscious and unconscious. I mean, you keep breathing whether you're thinking about it or not. And you can control the rate of your breathing if you're thinking about it, if you engage in it. But if you're not thinking about it, if you're not engaging in it, you're still doing it. Your breathing rate is still varied whether you're sympathetic or parasympathetic. And by choosing to engage it in that way, you can drive yourself one way or the other. You can actually drive your heart rate up or down, your blood pressure up or down by engaging the rhythm of your breathing, which is incredible. Cool. What?
Power. I just, without talking like forever, because there's just so much, it's just so interconnected. The rest and recovery and what your body's capable of versus what it's being suppressed of doing. So without going into anything specifically, I crave for our communities locally here to change the narrative that they're telling themselves about rest and recovery, and value that, find value within that. And I think we will start that when we feel the value within our community. So when we're doing that together. So when we're, engaging, whether it's engaging in our workout class together and we all say, yeah, this is important, or whether we're sharing a meal and saying like the way that we eat this meal is important, or the way that we're just approaching our entire body, and we have conversations about, the impact of how we move within our space, what our behaviors do to our physical body, that connection. So that's all I have to say. I just feel like there's so many specific areas that we can dive very deeply into, but what's come up over the course of this conversation was more of how we're valuing it and what would change the way that we value it.
So I guess on that note, what was your biggest takeaway from this? I mean, we definitely steered this conversation in ways that I didn't anticipate it going. So what's your biggest takeaway? What do you think would be the biggest thing that you can engage in, particularly with clients, to say, this is a really good way to value your recovery, a really good way to prompt your recovery?
I think the kind of overarching theme of this is we're told to work out, we're told to recover. We're told to prepare our food, we're told to eat well, we're told to breathe, we're told to sleep. But what you're supposed to do. The biggest thing is knowing why you should do it and really having a deeper understanding and intentionality behind it. And now maybe all of those things you're doing because you want to lose weight. You're doing because you want to get stronger. You want to be happier. You want to free yourself of your anxiety, whatever it may be. But knowing and being aware of what is the purpose and the reason why behind it, that's going to bring you into that recovery state on its own, and having a little deeper understanding of why you should do it, why your coach or your friend or your doctor, whoever it may be, is telling you to do it, can help really, one, because it's important, two, bring you into that parasympathetic state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why you want to do that. Yeah, exactly. I really enjoyed, like, my takeaway from this, like the biggest aha, which was fun for me, is just imagining experiencing a meditative experience while deadlifting. It's just like something my brain can't, has never, it's not that it's impossible. It's never experienced. And it was really surprising to, when you said that, to be like, oh, yeah, it comes in so many different forms. And we need permission to experience it in all its forms, because over time and throughout life, we might experience those meditative moments in a lot of surprising ways. But, being aware that they exist and invite them in and know that they serve purpose, because it funnels into the why. Why would you do this in the first place?
I think that was actually my biggest takeaway also. I did not expect us to talk so much about mindfulness and meditation in the course of our conversation on recovery. But the biggest thing that kept striking me is the number of times that we talked about intention, grinning like a cat. So my real biggest takeaway was the idea of doing this intentionally, where, yeah, people may roll their eyes at the prospect of recovering, of doing a recovery workout instead of doing a full-fledged heavy lifting workout, or I get a big eye roll when I talk to people about sleep. Because one of the biggest ideas is I don't have the time to sleep, and they dismiss that very essential time of recovery as not worth it, because they feel like if they're not actively engaging in pursuing their goals, that they're wasting time. And I think that being aware of your intention, being aware of really what it is that you're driving towards, can say, you know what, I can be more effective in the gym if I'm sleeping 8 hours a night. I can be more effective in my job if I'm intentionally making good food for my brain. And I think having that overarching goal instead of feeling the need to constantly grind at work is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we ended up talking about mindfulness so much, is because it does come with we have to change the foundation of how we set an intention, and how that, I just don't think you can have the conversation if we are facing a culture that's unwilling to accept or hesitant to accept the fact that recovery is something that's important. But then of course we need to start at the foundations, and that's like what we're accepting as truth. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But cool. Powerful.
Yeah.
Intention. Boom.
That keeps coming up everywhere. I can't seem to have a conversation with wellness professionals without it landing on intention, which is super interesting. I know.
Obsessed.
Good beard stroke. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and thank you guys for joining me. And we'll wrap this up. You guys have a great day. And thank you so much for your input.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.